Kevin, I want to bring you in on a question we have from a listener here, because all of our members seem to be just assuming now that Biden will be replaced. So this is from Solomillo de Jerez, I believe is how you say the name here. Does running another Democrat improve their chances? I think meaning the Democrats' chances. Then Trump's pseudo incumbency and experience becomes even more pronounced. That is a point that I hadn't thought of before. We seem to be operating from the idea that running another candidate other than Biden makes things better for Democrats, but maybe it doesn't, or it doesn't make anything significantly better for Democrats. Your thoughts?
Well, I think for that to work for the Democrats, what they have to put forward is someone who would be a plausible and confidence-inspiring alternative to Donald Trump.
Right.
And there are people who don't want to vote for Donald Trump, who are now going to feel like they can't really, in good conscience, vote for Joe Biden. Those people are the ones that you want to give someone to vote for. I mean, there are highly partisan Democrats who are going to vote for the Democrat no matter what. There are some on the fence persuadable voters. Some of them live in important states. And if you gave them an alternative that they could feel, if not even good about, just not terrible about, not that they were throwing the country into some sort of invitation to chaos, then you've got, between those voters and the reliable partisan Democrats, a strategy for providing an alternative to Trump. Trump's pseudo incumbency, I think, is a real issue because, as a number of people have noted earlier, that even though he is this uniquely awful character and there's chaos that follows him around all over the place, there was and there is among some people a sense that there was more normalcy in the country during his presidency. I think that's really people mistaking the pre-COVID and post-COVID eras for the Trump and Biden eras. But that doesn't change how it works in terms of electoral psychology. So if you had someone who seemed like someone who could be president of the United States, and that's really the problem with people like Harris, she doesn't seem like she'd be president of the United States. She's not a credible kind of person. She probably never should. I mean, she never should have been made vice president to start with. But there are people out there who could. There are governors out there who could. There's Newsom who possibly could. And, those folks might have a chance. And I guess the question you would have to ask yourself at this point is compared to what? If you had an 85% candidate, a 75% candidate even is going to have a better chance than a guy who looks like he's at about 45%. I mean, of his capacity.
Right. By the way, I want to bring up, we don't have to put the tweet up here, but Sungmin Kim of the Associated Press says that Kamala Harris, who you just mentioned, Kevin, says Biden had, quote, slow start in debate with Trump that sparked Democratic worries, but had, quote, strong finish. Yeah, I mean, I guess she feels like she had to say the second part, but the first part is revealing about just how bad things are.
Yeah, this cold is going to get a lot worse.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be. I mean, remember Trump debated when he had COVID. That was, So
was their spin, honestly. The fact that was their spin, and that they, there was a tweet from Kelly O'Donnell, who's a colleague of mine at NBC News, saying she talked to two sources. This was as Biden was sort of struggling at the beginning. Talked to two sources, and they said he's got a cold. And you just think that's not. I saw it, and I didn't even do anything with the tweet. I didn't retweet it. I didn't share it on our Slack channels because you're just like, surely that's not what they're going with, right? And then you start.
Oh, it was
Jackie Heinrich, my former colleague from Fox, had the same tweet, and that's just laughable spin. It's really embarrassing. Yes. Nobody's going to believe it, and I think it underscores sort of a bigger and I think sadder point. I know what it's like to do who have colds. It's not that, right? It's not that. And the really sad thing is those of us who have known older people who have had dementia or who have had problems with mental acuity or really slowed down near the end of their lives, you recognize what you saw in Joe Biden on the split screen, that sort of distant, empty stare and those dead eyes. And I think it's heartbreaking. I think Adam put it in our Slack channel that's heartbreaking. That's my thought. It's just heartbreaking to see this on a human level. But it also, and I think we're likely to see more of this, this also could just be me projecting, it also just really pisses me off. Like, where are the people who care about Joe Biden? Where have they been for the last year? Pushing him out when he was having, the stuff that we were seeing in public. Again, I think we talked about this on Dispatch Live before. My impression was that things were, as often as not, worse in private than the stuff we were seeing in public. And they went and they the Biden campaign was visiting reporters and visiting networks and talking to people who covered the campaign within the past few days, the past few weeks, browbeating them for covering Biden's age and mental acuity and pointing out that they were spending too much time covering this and it wasn't really an issue. And it turns out actually it's a really big issue. And it was an issue that they should have dealt with before, but they knew the extent of his problems, which is why they shortened his daily schedule so that he was basically doing work a little before lunch, during lunch, and a little after lunch.
Yep.
It's why they kept him hidden. They didn't put him out as much as they did. It's why they downplayed the gaffes and the glitches that he did have. And you just think that's just deeply, deeply irresponsible. And to do that, you have to be sort of infected with partisan brain in a way that I think most normal people, and I consider myself pretty normal, like, you just don't get that. Like, how does that work? Yeah, okay, fair. Somewhat normal.
Somewhat normal. I mean, where does the Wall Street Journal go to get its its apology after that story from a couple of weeks ago? Where does Robert Hur, the former special counsel, who actually kind of soft pedaled in his report just how bad things clearly were in his interview with Joe Biden? Where does he go to get his apology from people who are complaining about this? Declan, thoughts about kind of again, we've been talking about it this whole hour, the conversation going on behind the scenes, the sort of, where have all the people who should be looking out for Joe Biden's best interests, where have they been?
Among the people who know Joe Biden best, the answer, the only way to get Joe Biden to drop out is through his wife, Jill Biden, and who he's very close with. They're kind of his inner circle. And it's a sad story. It's a predictable story. Letting go of power is hard. And I think we're seeing that play out time and time and time again. And we're seeing, Kevin's answer earlier about, the collective action problem that we are, the country is faced with, that the Democratic Party is faced with. There's a whole lot of people who could make decisions that move the ball into a better path for the country, and nobody's making them because of selfish electoral reasons, personal advancement, what have you. But the conversations are going to be getting louder. This is obviously not what the Biden campaign, Biden himself, wanted everybody to be talking about at this point. There's the point of this debate for the Biden campaign was to make this a choice election between Biden and Trump, rather than a referendum on Joe Biden. And we've spent probably 10, 15 minutes of this hour talking about Donald Trump, and that's probably more.
That's generous.
Than other similar outlets and conversations here. And obviously, there's policy aspects to all of this, and we will continue to investigate those and report on those. But the fact that this is the conversation that we're having right now at 11:47 p.m., the night of the debate, there's just got to be a change, or we're headed to an election that's done right about now.
Reagan style.
Do you have an idea for how Biden can neutralize the debate performance and win the election? The White House puts out a statement tomorrow morning that says right before he walked on stage, he got the terrible, terrible news that Kinky Friedman had died. And in the ensuing outpouring of sympathy, he wins Texas in the general election and rides into the White House.
It's Kevin, so crazy. It just might work.
I
head
don't
back
think I'm
down.
betraying any confidences here. We got a reader email today asking for you to write an obituary of Kinky Friedman because a reader thought that you would be the person on staff best
All right.
equipped for that.
Steve, I know you have to go. We're going to wrap it up here. Thank you for joining us. Steve, any final thoughts before you leave?
Yeah, I was just going to point out that what we've been talking about, this sort of growing concern among Democrats. There was a tweet that I just put in
Yes.
our dispatch staff Slack from Julian Castro. Said Biden had a very low bar going into the debate and failed to clear even that bar. He seemed unprepared, lost, and not strong enough to pair effectively with Trump, who lies constantly. That's a brutal assessment from a
former
thought as a
Democratic
big
cabinet.
Yeah, a big future in Democratic politics. I suspect.
Was he the one who questioned Biden's age in 2019 in a Democratic primary debate?
Maybe.
Yes,
he might have been. Where does Julian Castro go to get his apology?
As he said earlier in that tweet, tonight was completely predictable. It was, as I said at the beginning, predictable and yet still shocking to see it. Steve Hayes, Kevin Williamson, Declan Garvey, thanks for joining. Grow up to see all the fun going on in the dispatch headquarters. Good night.